There's a kind of silence that settles in your chest when your gut realizes something your brain hasn't caught up to yet. That's exactly what I felt the moment I saw Emily leaning into her manager at a restaurant in Chicago's River North District. Ember plus Ash. That was the place. One of those chic spots with smoked cocktails and moody lighting. The kind of ambience that makes you feel like your secrets are safe in the shadows. We were supposed to be meeting some of her colleagues, team dinner, end of quarter. I didn't know most of them, but I went anyway. I always did. I wanted to support her. Emily had always been the one with the high-profile job, always the one in motion, always moving just a little faster than me. Marketing executive at a big firm. Presentations, conferences, product launches in other cities. I didn't mind that. I admired her drive. At least I used to. I got to the restaurant 10 minutes early, thinking I might surprise her, maybe even impress her by being the one who wasn't late for once. But when I walked in, she didn't notice me right away. She was at a small table off to the side, half hidden from the front bar. Just her and Jason. Jason, the manager she always said was demanding but brilliant. The guy who made her want to level up. I'd met him twice. Both times he'd looked at me the way someone might glance at a paper napkin. Present, functional, forgettable. From where I stood, I could see her face angled toward his. Not smiling for the crowd, smiling for him. She was speaking low, her lips brushing close to his ear. Her left hand was on the table, fingers splayed gently over his wrist. It wasn't a greeting. It wasn't a slip. It was deliberate. Int asterisk mate. I don't know how long I stood there before a waitress came by with a clipboard and asked if I had a reservation. My mouth was dry when I gave her Emily's name. "Oh, they're already seated," she said, cheerful, unaware. "Right this way." By the time I reached the table, Emily had shifted. The way she practically flinched upright told me she'd seen me before I saw her. Her hand was already off him, her smile dialed up to 11. "There you are," she said, like I was late, like I was the one catching up. Jason was just telling me this hilarious story about a client's dog chewing through an Ethernet cord during a pitch meeting. Jason smiled in that disarming, white-collar way, one hand still resting on the table where hers had just been. "Hell of a timing," he added, sipping his drink. Emily's eyes locked onto mine, and for a moment, I saw something flicker there. Guilt, maybe, or fear. But then it was gone, replaced with performance. The host version of her. The one I'd seen at networking events, conferences, office parties. She was in control again. "Sit, sit," she said, patting the chair beside her like nothing had happened. I sat, numb. The server brought over a smoked old-fashioned, my usual, and Emily acted like she'd ordered it for me. She always did know what I liked. It used to mean something. I don't remember most of the dinner. I remember Jason talking too loud. I remember Emily laughing a little too much. I remember her hand briefly brushing his again when they both reached for the wine list, and how she played it off like it was nothing. But it wasn't nothing. I knew it wasn't. There's a difference between friendly and familiar. I knew it the way you know when a song has gone slightly off-key. Maybe nobody else at that table noticed, or maybe they were just pretending not to. But I felt it. And once you feel it, you can't unfeel it. After dinner, she insisted we Uber home together. I kept waiting for her to bring it up, to explain what I'd seen, to acknowledge the tension hanging between us. But she didn't. Instead, she leaned her head on my shoulder like everything was fine, like we were still the couple we used to be. "I'm glad you came," she said as we crossed the bridge over the river. City lights reflecting off the water like fractured glass. "Jason can be intense, but he respects you showing up. It makes a difference, you know?" I nodded but said nothing. Her perfume filled the car, woodsy, sharp. The same one she'd started wearing 2 months ago. "A gift from the team," she said. We got home around midnight. She went to change. I went to the kitchen and poured myself another drink. That's when it started, this reel of disconnected moments that began to click into place. The second phone. She said it was for client accounts that required separate logins. I remember how she kept it face down, always on silent. She called it her project line. At first, I believed her. Then there were the muted late-night notifications. The times she'd step out during dinner to just finish something real quick. And the weekend trips, always for work, always ending on Mondays. Always with the same excuse. Team building, networking, high-stakes deliverables. I opened the drawer in our entryway. That's where she kept her tablet. Locked now. It didn't used to be. My thoughts were racing. Receipts from a boutique fitness club she never mentioned joining. One located just blocks from Jason's office. A hotel rewards email I'd seen pop up in her inbox once. Quickly swiped away. The same hotel brand they always used for corporate events. I remembered asking her about a conference she supposedly attended in Atlanta. She said it went well. A week later, I ran into an old classmate who worked at the same company and casually mentioned that the event was postponed. "Wasn't that next month?" he asked. I told him I must have been thinking of a different one. But I wasn't. Emily had lied. And I had let it go. All those late-night texting sessions during family dinners? Just a group chat with the team, she'd said, barely looking up from her screen. Her face always lit up, eyes darting across the messages like she was reading poetry. Back then, I chalked it up to stress, ambition. I even admired her hustle. But now I realized what I had really been doing, rationalizing. When she came downstairs, she was wearing one of my old college hoodies, acting casual. "Want to watch something?" she asked, already curling up on the couch. I studied her face, the slight stiffness in her jaw, the way she avoided my eyes. "No," I said. "I think I'm heading to bed." She looked up, surprised. "Everything okay?" I nodded. "Just tired." It was a lie, but I'd learned from the best. I didn't sleep that night. Not really. Emily came to bed maybe 30 minutes after I did. Slipped under the covers without saying much. Her back turned to me like always. I lay there staring at the ceiling, the soft glow of the hallway nightlight casting familiar shapes across the room. Familiar but colder now. Distant. It wasn't just that moment at the restaurant. That was the spark. But the kindling had been piling up for months. Quietly, patiently. I thought back to 3 months ago. A Tuesday night right after dinner. Emily had gone into the bedroom early, claiming she had a deck to finish for Jason's regional review. I came in an hour later, and she flinched when I entered, like I'd caught her doing something she wasn't supposed to. Her phone was upside down on the nightstand, and she grabbed it fast. Back then, I let it go. Then there was the second phone, the one she said was a client work line for managing vendor access. I'd asked her once why it had a separate case. She said her company gave it to her. But I never saw an official label. Never saw her plug it into the work laptop. And that was the phone she always carried into the bathroom. Always kept on silent. Always clutched just a little tighter when I walked by. And yet, I let it go. One Sunday afternoon, I found a receipt in her purse from a fitness studio across town. An expensive boutique place that ran small group sessions. She told me it was just a one-time drop-in, near her client's office. Said she was too far from our usual gym. But 2 weeks later, I saw the same studio's name pop up on our credit card statement. Another visit. Then another. I asked her about it again. She brushed it off. They gave me a discount for referrals, so I figured, why not? No mention of who referred her. No sign she was trying to save money elsewhere. It had started to stack. Little inconsistencies. Glitches in the fabric. There were the overnight retreats for leadership alignment. The 2-day agile offsites scheduled over weekends. And always they ended on Mondays. Never Sunday evenings like before. Always just long enough to be suspicious. Always with blurry hotel pics in the group chat she'd show me, but never with her actually in them. "I think the new VP's trying to burn us out," she'd say with a dramatic eye roll. "Seriously, we're all crashing the second we land." But I noticed something. Even on those trips where she claimed to be exhausted, she'd still be texting at midnight. Lying in bed, her screen glowing while I read quietly next to her. Always with a half smile. Always whispering if she answered a call. I used to think she was just decompressing. But the truth? I was making excuses for someone who had already checked out. That night, after she fell asleep, I slipped out of bed and walked into the guest room. I sat there in the dark with my laptop, the glow from the screen the only light in the room. I wasn't even sure what I was looking for at first. I just knew there was more. I could feel it in my chest, the same way you feel a storm coming, even before the wind picks up. I opened her cloud backup folder. We had a shared plan. She didn't even realize the default settings were on. Photos, emails, even documents, all syncing quietly in the background. That's when I found the file. It was a **T, one of those quick grabs people take to remember confirmation numbers or directions. Except this one was for a hotel booking. A luxury hotel in Denver. 2 guests. King Suite. Friday to Monday. She told me she was in Austin that weekend. Client kickoff for a wellness brand. I remembered her saying, back-to-back meetings. I won't even have time to breathe. But there it was. Plain as day. The reservation under her name. The confirmation sent to her personal Gmail. And Jason's initials listed as the secondary guest. I kept digging. More **TS. Boarding passes. Dinner receipts for 2. With timestamps matching nights, she told me she was grabbing quick room service. A forwarded Uber receipt from Jason's email to hers, with a pickup location that matched her hotel. Then something worse. Messages. Texts backed up from her phone to the cloud. Not a full thread, just her side. Still, it was enough. Can't stop thinking about this weekend. Still smiling from that morning flight. Wish I could just freeze time with you. Every word like a blade. There was one message that made my stomach twist into knots. A photo of a room service tray, 2 glasses, half-eaten French toast, a handwritten note on hotel stationery. Her caption underneath said, "Best breakfast I've had in months." I remembered that morning. She'd called me from the airport, saying her flight was delayed. I brought her coffee to the terminal before heading to work. She was already in Denver. That was when the grief began to shift. The sadness started to calcify, harden, turn into something quieter, but stronger. Resolve. I needed confirmation. Concrete, clean, professional. So I reached out to Marcus, a compliance officer at the company where Emily worked. We weren't close friends, but we'd worked together once on a joint audit. He was discreet, detailed, and more importantly, trustworthy. I sent him a message the next morning. Casual, indirect. I asked if he'd heard about any leadership shuffles in Emily's department. Told him I thought something weird was going on between her and her manager. I framed it as maybe worth looking into from a compliance standpoint. Marcus didn't reply until late that evening. His message was brief. "I'm not supposed to share this, but let's just say you're not imagining things. Parking logs, badge entries, event budgets, things don't line up. They've been leaving late together. A lot. And not just during work events. Sorry, man." I read that message 5 times. Let it sink in. The dots weren't just dots anymore. They were a map. One I couldn't unsee. And here's the thing, I didn't scream. I didn't confront her. I didn't smash anything. I just sat there with a strange kind of stillness. The kind that comes when the denial finally cracks and everything falls into place. Emily wasn't just cheating. She was building a second life. And I was the man in the waiting room. The strange what your mind does once certainty replaces suspicion. After months of wondering, digging, doubting myself. Once I had the **TS, the receipts, the messages, and Marcus's quiet confirmation. It was like something inside me just stopped spinning. There was no more need for interpretation. No benefit of the doubt left to give. I wasn't living in limbo anymore. I didn't confront her. Not yet. Instead, I made a decision, a cold, clinical one. If she had spent months making calculated moves behind my back, then I would make mine with the same precision. No yelling, no begging, no drama, just consequences. It started Sunday morning. I woke early. The sky was still a flat gray, Chicago half asleep under a light fog. Emily was still in bed, face turned toward the wall, breathing soft. I watched her for a moment, trying to feel something. Anger, pain, nostalgia. But all I felt was distance, like I was watching a stranger sleep in my house. I made coffee, logged into our joint bank account, and began the transfer process. Every dollar in savings moved into my personal trust account, one that had been dormant since my dad passed away and left me a quiet inheritance. I'd never touched it, never needed to, but now it was a lifeboat. Next, I started closing things: joint credit cards, shared autopays, subscriptions. Anything we co-owned became a target. I called the bank and froze our lines, citing suspected fraud. They didn't ask many questions. By noon, I'd removed her name from the property titles. We'd bought our condo before we got married, but I had the original documentation showing it was purchased with my premarital assets. Our prenup, something she'd once insisted was just a formality, was airtight. Infidelity voided her claim to post-marriage equity. Every move I made, I documented. Every click, every signed form, every call. I was building my own file now. When Emily finally came downstairs around 12:30, still rubbing sleep from her eyes, she barely noticed the change. "You're up early," she said, yawning as she reached for the coffee pot. I just nodded. "Yeah, couldn't sleep." She poured herself a cup and leaned against the counter, scrolling through her phone, probably texting Jason. I almost laughed. She had no idea her digital safety net was unraveling in real time. Around 3 p.m., I walked into the spare bedroom, our pseudo-office, and opened the locked filing cabinet she never really used. I pulled out every document I needed: marriage certificate, the prenup, our latest tax returns, utility bills, proof of income. It took less than an hour to assemble a full legal package. Then I did something I hadn't done in over a decade. I called a lawyer. The firm was recommended by a friend who'd gone through a scorched earth custody battle 2 years back. I didn't need a war, but I needed competence, strength, strategy. They called me back that afternoon. We spoke for 45 minutes. I laid everything out: the evidence, the pattern, the timeline. They were calm, impressed even. "Everything you're doing is correct," the associate told me. "You're not reacting emotionally. You're gathering, preparing, isolating assets. You're not giving her room to play the victim." Exactly. They asked me to send over the documents. I uploaded them within the hour. That night, I received the first draft of the divorce filing. Clean, direct, and centered around one word: infidelity. I didn't sleep much that night either, but I didn't toss and turn. I planned. By Monday morning, things were already in motion. The firm had served Emily's employer with an anonymous compliance request. Something legal, quiet, and routine. HR flagged it. Security flagged it. Marcus expedited it. When Emily showed up to work that morning, dressed in a beige blouse and her usual red lipstick, she walked into a waiting room, not a workplace. HR, legal, Marcus, security, all seated. They didn't accuse her. They didn't yell. They simply presented her with a manila folder filled with documentation. Flight logs, hotel bills, conference budget discrepancies, emails tagged from her corporate account that had nothing to do with business. A line item showed her booking 2 first-class seats for a client development session in San Diego. Neither ticket had a client's name on it. One of them was Jason's. Her access was revoked by noon. Jason's was too. I didn't know any of this from her. I knew it because Marcus called me. "They're calling it a preliminary audit," he said, his voice neutral. "But make no mistake, the tone shifted the moment your report hit the desk. This isn't going away quietly." I thanked him, said nothing else. That night, Emily came home changed. She moved like someone walking through water. Slow, distracted. She barely looked at me. I acted like I didn't notice. "What's wrong?" I asked gently, setting a glass on the counter. She hesitated. "Work was strange today." "Oh." Compliance flagged a bunch of stuff. Jason got pulled into HR. They're reviewing expense reports, I guess. "I don't know." I nodded. "Weird timing." She paused, watching me. I met her eyes. She said nothing. By the time she went to bed, the court delivery service had already confirmed receipt of the documents. They would be waiting for her tomorrow. The next afternoon, I emptied the apartment. Not all of it, just the parts that mattered. The framed photos of us? Gone. Our Paris trip keepsakes? packed away. The shared closet? Divided. My clothes neatly folded into my own section. Hers untouched. The furniture stayed. The bed stayed. But the atmosphere changed. Our space wasn't ours anymore. It was two islands side by side. And when she walked through the door around 6:15 p.m., carrying her work bag and a wrinkled sense of unease, she froze. "What's going on?" she asked, her voice brittle. I didn't answer. I simply handed her a sealed envelope. She opened it slowly. Inside, divorce papers, confirmation of financial transfers, and a condensed version of the report I'd built. She didn't speak, didn't scream. She just read. And when she reached the page with the screensh asterisk TS, of the hotel bookings, the flight manifests, the messages, her hand began to tremble. "I don't understand," she whispered. I said nothing. Her eyes scanned the page again, and then her voice dropped. "Who told you?" "No one had to. You did." She stared at me. There were no tears, no apology, just silence, like the moment after a building collapses, when the dust is still suspended in the air. By the end of that week, she was officially suspended pending investigation. Jason too. Her name was removed from 2 team projects. One was already reassigned. And me? I was gone. I moved out that Friday. Left her with the furniture, the walls, and her own echo. I took only what I needed. My documents, my accounts, my evidence, my peace. What she didn't know, couldn't know yet, was that the court summons had already been delivered to her inbox at work. She just hadn't seen it yet. I didn't hear from her for 3 days. After I handed Emily the envelope, after she sat on the couch for hours, flipping through each page like the truth might rearrange itself if she stared long enough, I left. I packed a bag, got in the car, and drove 2 hours out of the city to a friend's cabin in Wisconsin. No signal, no questions, no noise, just space. I needed it, because even though I'd done everything right, even though I'd built the evidence, filed the paperwork, protected my assets, and moved with calm deliberation, what no one prepares you for is the emotional lag, the delayed ache. Even when the mind is clear, the heart doesn't always cooperate. It's not the betrayal that stings the longest. It's the erasure. The realization that all the little shared moments you once considered sacred were just temporary scenery for someone else's double life. By Tuesday morning, my lawyer called. "She's been served," he said. "Confirmed receipt through both channels, paper and digital." Any response? No legal pushback. Yet. But the fallout's already beg asterisk N. Of course it had. He forwarded me a company bulletin that had been leaked onto an internal forum, an anonymous compliance alert sent to all mid and senior level staff. It outlined an ongoing internal audit, citing serious breaches of ethics and misuse of company resources related to undisclosed personal relationships. No names, but the tone was unmistakable. I didn't need to imagine how fast that spread. By the end of that week, the team chat groups, according to Marcus, were already splintering. Some colleagues were privately supportive of her. Others were furious, especially after the HR brief revealed that several project funds had been siphoned into travel expenses that weren't fully declared. Jason was placed on indefinite leave. Emily was temporarily relieved of client-facing duties pending full review, which is corporate speak for, "We're deciding whether to bury or burn you." When I returned to the apartment that Friday, everything was still exactly where I left it. Down to the coffee mug I'd set in the sink on the day I handed her the papers. But she wasn't there. I walked through the room slowly, half expecting her to come down the hall and ask me why I was home early, like this was some weird dream and none of it had happened. But it had. In the bedroom there was a note, handwritten, torn from one of the pads we used for grocery lists. "Thomas, I don't know what to say. I know I should have told you sooner. I know I broke everything. I wasn't trying to hurt you. I don't even know when it started feeling real. But it did. And I don't expect you to forgive me. I just didn't know how to stop once I realized I'd already gone too far. I've gone to stay with my mom. I'll give you space. I won't fight the divorce. You deserve better than someone who let this happen. I'm sorry. For everything. Emily. There was no mention of Jason. No explanation. Just distance and guilt, scribbled in a shaky hand. I folded the note once and slid it into the same envelope that held the original court filing. Not out of sentiment, just containment. The next morning, her mother called me. We hadn't spoken in months. "Thomas?" she said, voice low and uneasy. I don't know what happened. Emily won't tell me everything. But she came home crying. Said she made the biggest mistake of her life. She looks hollow. I didn't answer right away. She said you left her. Her mother added, as if that were the tragedy. She left first, I said. She just stayed in the house. There was a long silence on the line. I'm not calling to defend her, she finally said. But I'd like to understand what happened. I wasn't sure what to say. How do you explain months of betrayal to someone who still sees their daughter as the girl who used to bring home straight A's and write thank you cards unprompted? So I said what was simplest. She had an affair with her boss, and she used the company to fund it. Her mother didn't speak for a moment. Then, quietly, Is that why the condo paperwork changed? I froze. What? She logged into our family portal for the property tax notifications, she said. Saw that her name had been removed. She didn't say anything about it. Just shut her laptop and walked out. So she knew. All of it. Every quiet step I'd taken to protect myself had started to close in around her. And there was nothing she could say to stop it. Later that night, she tried. I got an email from her personal address around 10:24 p.m. Subject line, please read this. I almost didn't, but curiosity won. Inside, it wasn't an apology, not really. It was an unraveling. A quiet justification woven into half-confessions. I didn't expect to feel anything when it started. It was supposed to be harmless. A distraction. Jason was there when I felt invisible at home. When everything became about work and silence. He paid attention to me. And I know that doesn't excuse what I did. But I didn't mean to fall for it. I didn't plan this. Then, I know you saw the messages, the bookings, the photos, and I'm not going to lie or beg. I just want you to know that somewhere along the line, I convinced myself you wouldn't notice. Not because you're blind, but because I took advantage of your trust. And finally, I'm sorry. If I could go back and undo it all, I would. But I know that doesn't matter now. She signed it without her name. Just, I know I deserve this. I closed the email. I didn't reply. What was there to say? You don't respond to someone who just now realized the house is on fire when they were the one holding the match. Over the next week, the silence between us became official. My lawyer handled everything. She didn't contest a single term. Not the prenup, not the asset division, not the clause about ethical breach. Nothing. She folded. And with each passing day, the consequences sharpened. Her LinkedIn quietly updated to seeking new opportunities. Jason's profile disappeared completely. Mutual friends from her team stopped liking her posts. One of them messaged me privately to say, "None of us knew. We're sorry." But I didn't need apologies. I needed closure. That came one afternoon in the form of a letter, this time from the company's legal department. A formal notification confirming the termination of her employment, citing substantiated policy violations, including personal misconduct, financial misuse of company resources, and breach of professional conduct with a reporting manager. That was the final seal. The same woman who once got promoted for building vision and trust was now a cautionary tale in a corporate ethics manual. And I was already gone. I'd moved into a one-bedroom overlooking the lake. Quiet, modern, clean. No photos on the walls yet. No dishes in the sink. Just calm. For the first time in over a year, I could hear my own thoughts. And I wasn't afraid of them anymore. The official termination came through on a Thursday. I remember because it was raining, one of those slow, steady drizzles that just hovers over the city like a held breath. The kind of day where time stretches and everything feels muffled. Suspended. I was standing by the window in my new place, coffee in hand, when the email came through. Subject: Employee termination notification case closed. No drama. No commentary, just confirmation. Emily was no longer employed at the company. Jason wasn't either. The internal memo cited breach of professional conduct, conflict of interest, and violation of corporate expense policy. Their names weren't published, but everyone inside already knew. Whispers traveled faster than press releases. According to Marcus, the investigation was wrapped in under 2 weeks. Efficient, thorough, deliberate. They weren't looking to punish. They were looking to excise. Cleanly, quietly. It was, in a strange way, the perfect mirror of what I was doing in my own life. By the end of that week, Emily's access to all our joint accounts was officially disabled. Not just frozen, terminated. Her name was no longer tied to any deed, bank statement, or insurance policy. The divorce moved forward faster than either of us expected. No delays, no hearings. Everything was already agreed to, filed, and signed. The court accepted the settlement and issued a final decree by the end of the month. Just like that, it was over. 10 years of marriage, reduced to a signed PDF and a line in a courthouse ledger. I didn't cry. I didn't drink. I didn't even really feel anything the moment I got the call from my lawyer saying, "It's finalized." I just stood still, breathed, let it settle into my bones like the final chord of a song I didn't realize had ended. The strange part was how fast the rest of the world moved on. The people who used to ask about Thomas and Emily started only asking about me. Those who'd once posted anniversary wishes on our joint Facebook posts now liked the photos I took from my solo hikes up near Lake Geneva. Emily's name slowly disappeared from the margins of my life. Our group chats, the family calendars, the mail. Except for one place, her mother. She called again 2 weeks after the divorce was finalized. I debated letting it go to voicemail, but something in me answered. "Thomas," she said. Her voice sounded lighter this time. Not angry, not even heartbroken, just tired. Emily told me everything. I didn't say anything. "She's been staying with us," she continued. "She's not the same. She barely eats, barely speaks." "That was her choice," I replied quietly. "I know," she said. "I'm not asking you to change your mind. I think she believed she had more time to fix it than she actually did." Time. That's the one thing everyone thinks they have more of until they don't. She asked me if Emily could write to me, one last time. Not an apology, not a plea. Just something she wanted me to read. I told her she could try. 3 days later, I got a letter in the mail. Not typed, not emailed. An actual handwritten letter in her script. Slightly rushed, slightly crooked. The envelope was unsealed. Inside, "Thomas, I know you probably don't want to hear from me. I wouldn't blame you if you didn't even open this. But if you are reading it, thank you. I don't expect forgiveness. I don't even expect understanding. I just want to say something I didn't know how to say when it mattered. You were good to me, better than I deserved, honestly. You listened when I shut down. You stayed patient when I grew distant. You offered grace when I didn't earn it. I think I convinced myself that success had to be thrilling to mean something. That love had to feel like a movie scene every day or it was broken. I thought attention meant value. And I confused chaos with passion. Jason was a mirror, not a partner. He reflected what I wanted to believe about myself at the time. But there was nothing lasting there. No trust. No real love. Just escape. I didn't just betray you. I betrayed who I was when I stood next to you and said, "I do. I'm not writing to ask you to undo anything. I know it's done." I felt it the day you handed me that envelope. How calmly you looked at me. How prepared you were. You were already gone. I guess I just wanted to say, I see it now. All of it. And I hope someday when you're happy again and you will be, I hope you don't look back at us and only see the wreckage. I hope you remember the parts that were real. Because some of it was. At least to me. That's all. Emily. I read it once. Folded it. Set it on my desk. And left it there. Not because I needed it. But because I didn't want to throw it away out of anger. It wasn't a closure letter. It was a confession. And she was right. Nothing she said could undo what she'd done. But it didn't feel manipulative. Felt final. The following week, I went to the cabin again. Alone this time. I took long walks, cooked over a campfire, read until my eyes burned. And then one night, while watching the sun dip behind the treetops, I found myself reaching for my phone. Not to text Emily, not to check social media, but to call someone I hadn't spoken to in over a year, someone who once mattered. Her name was Rachel, an old friend from college. We'd lost touch years ago. There was never a thing between us back then, just mutual respect and timing that never quite lined up. But something about that night made me reach out. She answered after the second ring. Thomas. We talked for 2 hours. Not about the divorce. Not about betrayal. Just about life. Turns out she'd moved back to the Midwest. Tired of the coast. Wanted roots again. I told her I understood. That was the first real laugh I'd had in weeks. And suddenly, I remembered what hope felt like. Not the naive kind. Not the one that believes people will never hurt you. But the grown-up kind. The kind that knows you can survive being broken and still want to build something again. Not out of fear, but out of choice. That night, I slept with the window open. No nightmares. No weight in my chest. Just air. Clean, steady, and mine.